Okay, so in this video we're going to look at masculine and feminine nouns in French. We're going to look at why we have gender as part of language, how this works generally, so some simple rules that you can apply to help you to begin to tell the difference between masculine and feminine nouns, and how you can develop this learning with your classes. So we'll start off by looking at why we have gendered nouns in language, and I think this is a bit of a head scratcher for quite a lot of people who are native English speakers, because obviously it doesn't exist any longer in English. And if we look at this map, this is a map of Europe that shows us where different genders and types of gender nouns are used in the language. So all these countries that are the light blue countries are the ones that have no gender as part of their language any longer. So you'll see that there through Ireland and up through the UK into Scotland as well. Because in English it doesn't exist any longer. There is no gender as part of language. But if we look up here in the west coast of Scotland and also down in the west of Ireland, in the Gaelic languages it's still part of their language. So in Scots Gaelic, then they do have feminine and masculine nouns. So it does exist in languages all across Europe. And these countries here where it's this dark blue, so you'll see that up there in Iceland, down here into Norway, and then we've got the kind of Germany, these countries around here. So for these languages there's actually three types of gender, so masculine, feminine and neuter. And for those of you that have studied any German before, you'll know this. They've got the third gender as well. And actually that was what formed Old English. So Old English used to have three genders as part of it. And it's quite interesting to look into Old English as well and to see, you know, how this used to work previously. And there is a little bit of a hangover from it in some ways in the language. You know, so for example, we still refer to boats as she. Sometimes we might refer to rivers. So there are examples of where we do apply gender in English language today still. And some of that will be a hangover from it being part of Old English. And there's some really good videos on YouTube where you can go and listen to little bits of Old English. And Old English probably has the most in common, the sounds of it probably has the most in common with modern day Icelandic. So it's quite an interesting thing to listen to and to compare it, and to let your children listen to it and see what they think, see if they can hear any similarities. So an example in Old English then, instead of the in English, they had different ways of saying the, and the word was say or seo. So say was the masculine, seo was the feminine, and sun in Old English was feminine. So seo, sun. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. My Old English is probably not up to much, but it's just an example, and you can find different examples online where you can explore this a little bit more as to what the gender was, and do we ever hear it being used nowadays. And they're not quite sure why gender died out in language in Old English, but one theory is that it was due to the arrival of the Vikings. Now they also used different genders in their language, so they also had three as well. It was a Norse language, Norse languages that they spoke, so it was very similar to Old English and what was being spoken here at the time. But they think it's perhaps because there was a bit of confusion between genders, and some of the Vikings language had gender for some things that was different from Old English, so maybe over time that it was just abandoned. So that's one theory as to why it's not within English any longer. And this is a quote which I quite like. You know, I think that it's a good way of exploring your own language through beginning to learn about another. You know, reflecting on the differences between language begins to give you a little bit more of an insight into your own, and that's always a helpful thing. So we'll look at, first of all, we're going to look at the articles in French. And the articles in French it's really useful, I think, to have these clarified, because sometimes it can be a wee bit confusing if you're new to French, if you've only started to teach it and to learn it yourself. So we'll start off with un, une, and des. And un, une, and des are the way you would say a or some in French. So un is a, and that's masculine. So un. And you could use that for un crayon, par exemple. Une is feminine, so une gomme, a rubber. And des is the plural form, so if you're talking about more than one thing, so des crayons. And we don't use the equivalent of the word des all the time in English. So the equivalent would be some. So we don't always have to say some pencils. We could just say pencils. But in French, you always have to include this. So des crayons, pencils or some pencils. And then le, la, les. So le, la, les. So we've got then the. So the way that you would say the. So le is the masculine, singular masculine way that we would say the. La, the singular feminine way. L apostrophe, so L apostrophe. This is singular with a vowel. So for example, l'orange. So when the noun starts with a vowel, you use the L apostrophe. So you can join that up. And les, plural. So the plural. Par exemple, les crayons. So the masculine, singular, le crayon, the pencil. La gomme, the rubber. Et l'apostrophe avec une voyelle, l'orange. Les crayons. And then mon, ma, mes. So this is how you would say my in French. Par exemple, mon frère, c'est masculin. Ma sœur, ma mère, féminin. Mes, pluriel. Mes parents, mes grands-parents. Okay? Mes crayons, my pencils. Super. My pencil, if you talk about one, mon crayon. My rubber, if you talk about one, ma gomme. So mon, ma, mes. And then I've also included in here du, de, la, des, because these quite often come up in relation to food. So it's quite useful just to know them. Sometimes in French, it's all these wee words that become quite tricky. So it's good if you're able to begin to recognize these. And so these are the way we would say some. So du lait, some milk. De la soupe, so some soup. Des biscuits, a little bit, and just the same as des crayons, des biscuits, some biscuits. So du is the masculine form, so some milk. Du lait. De la soupe. Des biscuits. So there's different examples there. So you've got un, une, des, le, la, les. And those are the most important ones. So they're the big ones to focus on if you're new to this and you're just learning this for the first time. So un, une, des, le, la, les. And the more you can begin to control these and change between them, it gives you more ownership of the language. So we'll see here, with par exemple, we've got donnez-moi une gomme. Donnez-moi, give me, une gomme, a rubber. Donnez-moi une gomme. But if you wanted to change that to the rubber, donnez-moi la gomme. Prends un crayon. Pick up a pencil. So pick up the pencil. Prends le crayon. Cherchez des feutres. Go and fetch some felt tip pens. Fetch the felt tip pens. So you're telling them specifically those ones. Cherchez les feutres. Donne-moi les crayons. Give me the pencil. But if you want to say, give me a pencil, donne-moi un crayon. Ouvre la porte. Open the door. And if you want to say open a door, ouvre une porte. So you're just switching these around. Distribuez les livres. Hand out the books. Distribuez des livres. Hand out some books. Okay. So let's look at a couple of examples just to practice these. So, comment est-ce qu'on dit, how do we say, comment est-ce qu'on dit the pear? Alors, la poire, super. Et comment est-ce qu'on dit a pear? Une poire, bravo. Comment est-ce qu'on dit an apple? C'est féminin. Pomme, c'est féminin. Une pomme, bravo. Comment est-ce qu'on dit the apple? Oh, sorry, apples, des pommes. Comment est-ce qu'on dit the apple? La pomme. Et comment est-ce qu'on dit the apples? Les pommes, bravo. Ensuite, citron. Et citron, c'est masculin. Comment est-ce qu'on dit a lemon? Un citron, super. Comment est-ce qu'on dit lemons? So some lemons. Des citrons, bravo. Comment est-ce qu'on dit the lemon? Le citron, super. Et comment est-ce qu'on dit the lemons? Les citrons. Bravo. Et finalement, comment est-ce qu'on dit an orange? Une orange. Super. Comment est-ce qu'on dit oranges or some oranges? Des oranges. Bravo. And if you listen to this when I'm pronouncing it, it kind of runs into des oranges. So whenever you've got something that ends in this S here, les or des, and it's followed by the vowel, then it kind of runs into almost like a soft Z sound. So des oranges. Des oranges. Super. Oops. Comment est-ce qu'on dit the orange? L'orange. I was a bit quick there. Et comment est-ce qu'on dit the oranges? Les oranges. And you can hear that. Les oranges. Bravo. Okay, so we'll start to look now at how you tell the difference between what's masculine and what is feminine. And for some of these, it's just a really straightforward gender split by the object. So, for example, if you're talking about a male, then it's a masculine word. If you're talking about a female, it's a feminine word. So, and this relates to the person. So, par exemple, frère, père, cousin, oncle, fils, homme, garçon, neveu, prince, roi. So all these gender male names, they all take a masculine pronoun. So, par exemple, my uncle, mon oncle, a prince, un prince, a nephew, un neveu, the boy, le garçon. So they all go with the masculine pronouns. And the same for the feminine ones. So all the female gender names all take a female pronoun. Sœur, la sœur, ma mère, la cousine, la tante, une fille, une femme, la fille, ma nièce, la princesse, une reine. So they all take the feminine pronouns. So that one's dead easy. So if it's a boy, it takes the masculine. If it's feminine, it takes the feminine one. Other masculine nouns, so other nouns which tend to be masculine. So the days of the week are all masculine. Le lundi, le mardi, le mercredi, le jeudi, le vendredi, le samedi, et le dimanche. So all masculine. The months of the year are all masculine. Avril, mai, septembre, all masculine. Les couleurs, le bleu, le rouge, le jaune, tous sont masculins. Les saisons, le printemps, l'été, l'automne, l'hiver, again, all masculine. Languages, so le français, l'anglais, l'espagnol. Metric units, un kilo, un mètre. Metals, l'argent, l'or. So that's silver and gold. Cheeses, le camembert, le roquefort, le brie. And wines, le sauvignon blanc, le merlot, le malbec, all masculine. And some examples which are feminine, so l'Asie, so continents, so l'Asie, l'Europe, l'Afrique, all the continents are feminine. Brand names of cars, la Peugeot, la Renault, la Citroën. Brand names of watches, and this is because the word for watch itself, une montre, which somebody told us when we were doing the live session of this, they helpfully looked up and found out for us. So, une montre, the watch itself is feminine, so the brand names for the watches take la, so they're all feminine. So, la Rolex, par exemple. Names of rivers, la Loire, la Loire. And then sciences, the names of sciences, la science, la chimie, la biologie, la psychologie, all feminine as well. So that shows us how some of them are organised by category, but that's unusual. And generally speaking, French nouns, you would actually tell if they're feminine or masculine, not by what they are, but how they're spelled. So it's actually the spelling of the word that tells us if it's masculine or feminine. And about 80% of French nouns you can actually work out by the spelling of the end of the word. So however it's spelled at the end of the word. So we're going to look at a couple of broad examples of how we can do this. So when we're looking at feminine words, so we'll look at the feminine words first of all. And this, like I say, is very broad brush, so there's actually a lot more detail in terms of specific endings for these. But this gives you a general indication as to what you're looking for. Particularly in the primary school, I think this is quite useful. So generally speaking, if a noun ends in the letter E, it tends to be feminine. So par exemple, la salade, une poire, la table, la règle, la chaise, la banane, la danse. So they're all feminine. And with French, there are always exceptions to the rule, so this is not foolproof. But generally speaking, you can pretty much guess that most of them will be feminine. Another good indication of a feminine noun is if it ends in a double consonant and an E. So, par exemple, une coccinelle. So we've got that L ending. And the L ending is the same word for she in French. So that's a very good indicator. Coccinelle. Une coccinelle, a ladybird. Une chaussette. And again, this it tends to be the femininization of different words as well. So it, une chaussette, une coccinelle, une fille, double L-E, so double L-E at the end. La terre, la femme, la princesse. And again, it's not always foolproof. You might remember what the word for man was. It was l'homme, l'homme. And that also ends in a double M-E, so it's not always 100% foolproof. But generally speaking, a double consonant and an E at the end of a word indicates that it's feminine. ION is also another common ending of feminine nouns in French. So la natation, swimming, la télévision, l'équitation, horse riding, une nation, l'information. So this ION ending tends to tell us that a word is feminine as well. So we'll look at the masculine words now. And if it ends in a consonant, so this is again very generally speaking, but you can pretty much guess if it ends in a consonant, it will tend to be masculine, especially a lot of the words you're going to see in the primary school as well. So, par exemple, le crayon that we've seen come up, so pencil, le crayon, un club, un magasin, le golf, le sport, le caramel, le chocolat, le bain, le football. Okay, so, and you can begin to pick out these words as you're learning them with your classes, and you can begin to see the patterns emerging as you go as well. But generally speaking, if it ends in a consonant, then there's a good chance that it will be a masculine noun. I've got some consonants listed up here as well, but that's not all of them. If it ends in O, I-A-U, O, un bateau, un gâteau, un château, un agneau. Okay, so that O ending as well, and that would tend to tell you that it's a masculine noun. And confusingly, O on its own means water, but that's actually feminine. So like I say, the French love to break rules and there's always exceptions. But if you see it at the end of a word, generally speaking, it will tell you that that's a masculine noun. A, so different from the E on its own, A. Un café, le marché. And that A sound tells us that it's a masculine noun most of the time. And I did say that some of the words that end in E, there are groups of them which are masculine. So these words that we have here, so example, ending in age, bleu, cle, age. So they would tend to be masculine nouns, but again, not always. So we've got a couple of examples here. Le courage, un obstacle, le sable, le système, le fromage, un cercle. And I would say of all those words, the ones you're most likely probably to come in contact with in primary school, you might hear le sable, but also le fromage, un cercle, former un cercle, former un cercle. And they are mostly, like I say, masculine, and that it's a little bit different from the ending in E when they would tend to be feminine, but if you know that doesn't always apply, then it's helpful. Okay, so let's practice a couple of these. So, ananas, masculin ou féminin? Masculin, un ananas. And it's got the consonant at the end. Ananas, un ananas. Fraise, masculin ou féminin? Féminin, la fraise ou une fraise? Bravo. Cerise, masculin ou féminin? Féminin, une cerise, la cerise. On fait plural, pluriel, des cerises. Bravo. Raisin, grapes. Masculin, un raisin, le raisin. Some grapes, du raisin. Super. Citron vert, masculin ou féminin? Masculin. Bravo. Le citron vert. Un citron vert. And it's got the T at the end. Consonant at the end. Chien. Masculin ou féminin? Masculin. Le chien. Un chien. Soleil. Masculin ou féminin? Masculin. Le soleil. And again, ending in the consonant. Carotte. Masculin ou féminin? Féminin. Super. Une carotte, la carotte. And again, it's got the double consonant E at the end. Chapeau. Masculin ou féminin? Masculin. Un chapeau, le chapeau. Bravo. Escargot. Masculin ou féminin? Masculin. L'escargot. Un escargot. And we've put the L apostrophe here because it starts with a vowel. Papillon. Masculin ou féminin? Papillon. Masculin. And again ends in the consonant. Un papillon, le papillon, a butterfly. Abeille. Abeille. Masculin ou féminin? The bee. Abeille. Féminin. Une abeille. And you've got the double consonant E at the end. Jambe. Masculin ou féminin? Féminin. Bravo. So, we're going to look now at how we might develop this as part of learning and teaching. And my advice would be, I don't think I would really be looking to go into this in any detail until we were around about P4. You might, when they're a little bit earlier, and somebody that took part in the live call earlier, in the live class earlier, had suggested that, you know, they'd seen an example of where you could have the words grouped by masculine and feminine on different sides of the class. So when they're a wee bit younger, you might want to start putting them into categories of masculine and feminine. So maybe around about P3 stage, and that's quite useful, especially when you look at doing things like fruits. It's quite nice to begin to separate them at that stage. But looking at the actual grammar of it, I would maybe do from P4, P5. And if you bring it in around about P5, it's quite nice because you can link it into dictionary activities as well. So beginning to look up words in the dictionary. So one example of an approach to develop this and to develop the learning in this, and I would tend to flip this if I was looking at teaching it and to actually give it over to the children to begin to work out the rules themselves. You could keep the rules really broad and look at the kinds of rules that we've looked at today. So the masculine ending in the consonants and the O endings, and the feminine with your E endings and your ION endings. So just keeping it really broad. Give the pupils out get the pupils organised into groups and give them out sets of wee mini flashcards, or get them to make mini flashcards with the words and with a picture on them. And then from there, ask them to then begin to sort them in their groups, so they can begin to look at, okay, what are the rules that, you know, do we see any patterns coming up here in the spellings of the words, and looking at the end of the words, the spellings at the end of the words, and finding out what they have in common. And I would keep these separate, so do it as two separate parts where you'd look at feminine first and then masculine second, or vice versa. And ask them to begin to work out what the rules are in the groups. What do they think the rule is for masculine? What do they think the rule is for feminine? And then compare your findings as a whole class and ask them to create some kind of grammar. Once you've gone over that, ask them to create some kind of grammar reference resource. So for example, a poster or something they can use within their groups, and they can refer to it when they're learning new words to see where does it fit. And you could still bring in your kind of putting words up on the walls at either side of the class with masculin and féminin on different sides of the walls, on different sides of the class. But it's quite good to refer back to it and refer back to it as part of their ongoing learning, and that helps them to reinforce this idea that they're looking at the spelling of the word, and also that they can begin to work it out for themselves over time. Once you've done that, another thing you could possibly do would be to do a structured sort race. So once you've got an idea of the rules and the pupils beginning to develop a bit of an understanding of them, you could then mix up their words again, so shuffle their cards, put each of their group's cards out at different areas of the class, which is then allocated to them. Ask one pupil from each group to come out, take a card, take it back to their group, and then ask them to work out if it's masculin or féminin. Hand the card to the next person, who then goes and puts it back in where their cards were, and then they have to put it into either a masculine pile or a féminin pile. And then they take another card back to the group, and then they go through the process again. And the first group to have sorted all their cards correctly wins. Okay, I hope that's helpful, and any questions, please just let me know, and merci beaucoup.